To the federal investigation of Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York City and personal attorney to former President Donald Trump. Last week, federal agents raided Giuliani's New York home and office in the early hours, carrying out a search warrant related to an ongoing probe of Giuliani's alleged lobbying efforts abroad during the Trump presidency. Giuliani has not been charged with a crime and has denied any wrongdoing. Joining us tonight is Rudy Giuliani's son, Andrew Giuliani, who served as special assistant to the president and former associate director of the Public Liaison Office in the Trump administration. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Mr. Giuliani.
Lindsay, thank you very much for having me on. Appreciate it.
So you've said that the raid was politically motivated, and you've compared it to the tactics of Joseph Stalin. But sources say the investigation into whether your father allegedly worked as a foreign agent for clients in Ukraine without registering as a foreign agent while he was pressuring that government to investigate Joe and Hunter Biden began in 2019. So the investigation into some of your father's business dealings began during the Trump administration when William Barr was Attorney General. Was the probe politically motivated at that time?
Well, you started that off by saying sources said, and I would just point you to the recent retractions from NBC News, from the New York Times and the Washington Post, who had to retract their stories or correct their stories. I certainly see it as a retraction from those probably same sources. I obviously don't know the sources, but I look at this as basically, the media and the Justice Department. As I've said before, I think this is the politicization of the Justice Department, and I think these sources really got it wrong on this one, and we've just seen that this weekend with the recent retraction in those three news sources.
So are you saying also that you feel like that it was wrong because apparently there were some internal disputes about whether or not there should be a raid of your father before or after the election? Again, that would have been during William Barr being at the helm of the Justice Department.
Again, I don't know those sources, so it's very difficult for me to speculate on them. All I can point to the fact is, these sources were the ones who leaked this out to the NBC News, to the Washington Post, to New York Times, as I said before, who had to retract different things in that story right there. So they've already gotten it wrong. Less than 72 hours since that, raid by the FBI ended up happening. So I certainly question the validity of that source reporting.
And of course, it's certainly unusual for authorities to raid the home and office of a lawyer, and your father has called the search illegal and unconstitutional. But the warrant was approved by a judge, and Mr. Giuliani and his lawyer don't know what information prosecutors used to obtain it. So given some of these unknowns, how are you so certain that this raid was in fact illegal?
Well, look, I just see the facts here, and the facts are it was approved by a Obama-appointed judge. Again, I'm not saying that whether or not he had political motivation or not, but that is a fact. It was approved by an Obama-appointed judge. I do also know that they took the electronic devices in the house except for one, and that was the hard drive that belonged to Hunter Biden. Now, if there is an active investigation into that, why wouldn't the FBI end up taking that? So to me, I add that up, and then I add up a bunch of different things that have happened over the past 5 years, including getting 4 different FISA warrants from an opposition research dossier. And it certainly makes me question whether or not this is politically motivated or not. I come to the conclusion that I believe it is, in connecting it all right there. Could I prove it in a court of law? I could not prove that it's actually politically motivated in a court of law, but I think doing deductive reasoning, I think it's pretty easy to come to that conclusion, certainly to question whether or not this is independent or politically motivated.
Yeah, and just to be clear, we have reported that there is an ongoing investigation into Hunter Biden. As far as we know, there are no new developments at this point. But just want to pivot for a moment. How would you describe your father's current relationship with Donald Trump?
I mean, they spoke a couple of days ago. I was with the president a few days back. I guess it was Friday I was with the president. He was in a very good mood. He spoke to me about my father for probably 20 minutes or so. I would say it's good. I know that they were together probably about 3 weeks ago. So it's a good relationship. Look, they've known each other 35 years. It goes back a long time. I've known the president for over 20 years and worked for him for 4 years in the White House. So, it's a very solid relationship. My father is loyal to the president as the president is loyal to him.
And so based on that solid relationship, I would assume that if it comes to pass that your father is charged with a crime, like for a possible violation of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, that your dad would likely rule out testifying against or offering any information about his former client, Donald Trump.
Well, look, my father is as strong as a rock, and he's a very, very loyal guy when it comes to his business relationships and certainly when it comes to representing a client. That's another thing, too, that I would just point to, right? This isn't just any lawyer or any American that they actually went in on. This is the former president's lawyer. So you have a lot of privileged information that is on those phones that may not be specific to what they actually allege. It's another, to me, it actually shows if it could happen to the former president's lawyer, it could happen to any American. But I can tell you this, my father is as strong as a rock. He's a loyal person when it comes to his, when it comes to his work, when it comes to his work relationships. And I certainly expect him to stay very strong.
Finally, I want to read to you a tweet from your father's ally, former New York City Police Commissioner Bernard Kerik. And he tweeted out, "I want to know what the GOP did with the $250 million that they collected for the election legal fight. Lawyers and law firms that didn't do expletive were paid lots of money, and the people that worked their expletive off got nothing." Do you expect that your father might get some help from Trump's legal defense fund?
I do think he should be indemnified. I think I think all those Americans that donated after November 3rd, they were donating for the legal defense fund. My father ran the legal team at that point. So I think it's very easy to make a very strong case for the fact that he and all the lawyers that worked on there should be indemnified. So I certainly agree with that. I'm not sure what the current status of that is, but I would find it highly irregular if the president's lead counsel did not get indemnified.
And lastly, Andrew, I'm just curious because, a lot was made, and you brought up the idea that your dad is a loyal man, and many of us saw that on full display when he was on the stage with President Trump, former President Trump, on January 6th. And many people accused your father of really being part of encouraging that crowd right before the insurrection. Was there anything that you were disappointed about with regard to your father's words or kind of actions on that day?
Look, I love my father very much, and I know what he saw was he read through over 1,000 affidavits that came in from Americans all across the country over the previous couple of months, and it concerned him. It concerned him that we did not have an election with the full integrity that we should have, and he had the convictions to actually pursue on when less people probably would not. So I'm very, very proud of my father from his work as U.S. Attorney of the Southern District of New York, putting away the mob, to his time changing New York City. I would say the greatest mayor in the history of New York City, all the way to present day. So I'm a very proud son.
Okay, understood. And we should just add that there has been no evidence that there was any kind of fraudulent behavior during the election, nothing that has been proven at this time. Andrew Giuliani, we appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Lindsay, thank you very much for having me. Have a good one.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.